Hello, I am Angelica. I am the director of the Specialized Center for Stuttering here in Peru in South America. And today I am with Claire. She is the founder of Stammerers through University Consultancy in the UK. And today she is here because we are going to talk about this topic and about why it's important to talk about stuttering at university and what teachers can do, and also about the experiences of people who stutter in this area. So thank you so much, Claire, for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, so I'm Claire. I'm the founder of STUC, which stands for the Stammerers through University Consultancy. As you said, it's based in the UK. And I founded it back in 2014, so a long time ago.
Yeah, it's been like 8 years already, I think.
Yeah, crazy.
So, well, I will start asking you a very general question, and could you tell us more a bit about this institution and why you decided to found it?
Yeah, sure. So I founded it back in my final year at university, and I was studying French at the time, and it was in my final year and I was studying French. And so the main part of my final year was doing a speaking exam, and that was worth about 50% of the year. So it was worth a really large chunk of that. And I had a very bad stammer at the time. It was really prominent. And I was really worried that my stammer would be misconstrued as not being able to speak French or not understanding how to speak French. So I didn't want to be penalized unfairly because of that. And so I went to my university's disability services and said, look, I have a stammer. I'm really nervous about this exam. Can you give me any tips, any advice? And they said, just breathe and you'll be okay. And I thought, what? You know, what? I was gobsmacked. And that sort of made me think, well, you know, I don't think you understand what stammering is or how a stammer works, you know, how it manifests itself. And so that led me to think, well, how many other people around the UK are being offered this advice, you know, and is there anything that I can do to help? So that's why I set it up in the first place. I currently work with 21 universities all over the UK, and the aim of it really is for me to be able to offer advice to both students and staff who stammer at university, to be able to ensure that they're not being held back or they're not being treated unfairly as a result of their stammer.
Yes, and this is very important. And actually, I was very impressed and surprised because when I found your institution last year in the Congress, because it's the only institution that I have met that is really and only focused on this topic, like stuttering at university. And that's really important because most of the time we are more focused on school children or school age children, which is completely fine, but there is like something missing, like and it's those who are at a university. And this is also really important because they also experience a lot of things. And I also had bad experiences when I was at university because of my way to talk. And I have met also other people that had more bad experiences about this. And most of the time it's because the teachers don't know what to do. And for example, when I had an interview with one of my teachers for my thesis, I asked her something like, what can you do if you have a student that stutters in your classroom? And her answer was, well, the students at university are adults already, so they need to have their own abilities and their own ways to know what to do, because they are not young, they are adults, so it's not my work to do something with them. And I was very shocked when I received that answer from her, because, and this is something that I found really important to share, is the idea of, even though they are still at university, they are also in their process of accepting their way to talk, of accepting who they are. It's not like they are at university and they have, I don't know, all things done. No, they are still on that process. And something that someone mentioned on this conference was the idea of, it's okay if they disclose about this at any time on the semester. It's not just that they have to tell the teacher at the beginning. They can do it later too, because they are on the process, and the teacher needs to understand that also.
Absolutely. And I think it's a very common feeling that society puts the blame on the person who stammers, and it's always the person who stammers who is at fault, and they are the problem. They need to sort it out, and it's no one else's responsibility. And I think for us who do stammer, for us, we are made to feel like we are the problem, whereas actually, if you flip it, you could say that to an extent, everyone else who doesn't understand stammering, who doesn't make the accommodations that we need, they are actually the problem, because they don't accept that we stammer. They think that we need to sort it out, but they're not going to help us in any way. So actually, we are disabled people expected to fit into a world, into a society that has been created for able people who are able to speak normally. And so they expect us to either be excluded, or for us to all of a sudden get rid of the stammer, or to solve the stammer for us to be able to fit into their idealized social model.
Exactly. And it's very curious, because I don't know, if you see someone in a wheelchair, that you are not going to ask that person to walk. So why ask us to speak like people who don't stutter? Like this is our way to talk. Even though if we go to therapy, can help, but it's not like we are going to, or they are going to cure our way to talk. We are going to stammer sometimes anyway.
Yeah.
And it's important for them to understand that, and not, I don't know, pretend that we need to solve our things, because that's not the way how it works. And something that I wanted to share, it's a PDF that, well, your organization and STAMA and other institutions did, that I consider very useful. I'm going to share it here. And this document, supporting a student who stammer in higher education. It's super complete with information about what they can do, what the teachers can do. It's a bit long to explain it all in this video. But I wanted to ask you if you could share us a bit of what this PDF says for those who are watching this video.
Of course, yeah. So it's essentially a document that I created alongside some other stammering groups. So Stammer, which was formerly known as the British Stammering Association, as well as the London South Bank University. I was asked to help contribute to this document, and it's essentially an information pack really for staff who work in higher education, for them to understand that actually if you have a stammer, university is really difficult, or at least it can be really, really difficult. If you don't have the right people there to support you, it is hard. It really, really is hard, especially when, so I don't know what it's like where you are, but for people in the UK, it's pretty much assumed that university is the best years of your life, and you make friendships that are going to last forever and ever and ever, and it's the time when you fully develop into a confident adult and you find your own identity. But if you have a stammer and you're terrified of socializing, talking in class, meeting new people, how are you expected to do that? So it's a huge challenge, basically. And so this document outlines all of the possible areas where people who stammer might struggle within a college or a university setting. And it's essentially a way for people who stammer to tell people who don't, have you thought about all of these scenarios? Have you thought about how, for someone who has a stammer, why these situations might be very challenging or might be more difficult than for someone who doesn't have a stammer? And we offer tips and ways for them to be able to be more accommodating. And yeah, it's a really, really good document, and it's something that I'm very, very proud of having to have been asked to participate in, because we need to educate people who don't stammer. We need to help them understand that actually more needs to be done. So I think this document is a small slither as to how this could be helping to contribute to that.
Yes, totally agree. It's very important to understand the experience of being a person who stammers or who stutters, because I mean, just saying those words, I am a person who stammers, I will need some accommodations on my lessons. It's not that easy. It's not like the teacher says, oh yeah, but the student need to tell me that. But it's not easy. There are many things that can be happening there. It could be that the person had bad experiences on the past, saying that with other teachers, so that now the person is, I don't know, is confused about if it's a good idea or if not, because that person doesn't want to have the same experiences they had already. Or as we were saying, could be that it's still on that accepting process. So there are a lot of things that could be going on, and it's not that easy just to go with a teacher and to say, yeah, hey, I am a person who stammers. I mean, that's a big step, actually. And yeah. And something that I wanted to ask you going into this PDF is, could you tell us a bit, for example, what teachers can do to help students at university?
Of course, yeah. One thing I would probably say is the main problem, I use that term loosely, is for students who want to study certain modules. So in the UK, you will have certain modules that you can choose within your subject. And it's quite often that actually those modules will come with a predetermined assessment method. So if I wanted to choose a certain module, it's possible that the only way I could choose that module is if I'm assessed at the end of it by giving a presentation, for example. And so someone who has a stammer might look at that module and think, well, actually, I don't want to do that anymore because I can't do presentations and I don't want to be marked down because of that. And so by being able to be accommodating by way of giving students more options, you know, do you have to do it by presentation to a whole class? Can it be to 5 people, to 10 people? If you're saying you have to present for 5 minutes? Is it possible for that to be doubled to 10 minutes in case I stammer? And also for writing the criteria that students are marked against. You know, I've seen for some degrees in languages, but also for journalism, for example, where you have to be able to talk a lot. I've seen some universities say that they will mark you down if you hesitate, or if you mix up your words, or if you aren't able to talk fluently. And for someone who stammers, the majority of them are going to think, well, I can't do that because I hesitate and I stumble on my words. So am I instantly going to fail because it's already been predetermined that if I can't speak fluently, I'm going to do badly? And so it's around the language that's used for stammering, as well as just being able to give people more options. For me, it's like if you're asking someone, for example, in a wheelchair, if you're saying that they have to walk a certain distance, you just wouldn't ask someone to do that. So why would you say to someone who stammers, you have to do this presentation, or you have to talk for half an hour on this topic? It just doesn't make sense. So I think it's a level of flexibility, and by being able to readjust the language that we're using as well around what is expected of us. So why does someone have to talk fluently to pass? You know, that there have been many courses that I've passed in the past through stammering, and even though I may have been marked down, I still passed. And we can't let people think, and we can't let people believe that if they stammer, they're going to fail. That's just not something that I can accept, and it isn't something that anyone should accept. Why should we feel like we are less equal than people who don't stammer? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. It's a lot about, you were saying, flexibility, and a lot of empathy also. I don't know. I also have had bad experiences with teachers at university. I remember once I told her, I want to tell you that I am a person who stammers. So if you see that I am having some blocks or repetitions in my way to talk, it's not because I'm nervous, it's because this is how I talk. And the teacher asked, or her answer was like, why you didn't tell me that at the beginning of that course? And I was like shocked. And because it was already at the beginning of the course, I was still unsure, like, and then like he came to me and said, okay, but it's fine, just breathe and relax. And that's the worst, the worst thing that you can say to someone who talk like that, because it's like, we are doing that already. Like, we need to breathe to be alive. It's not like we need to breathe more to speak fluent. That it's not how it works. So a lot of empathy also, but as you were saying, a lot of flexibility, and actually it's not like we are asking for a favor or something like that. I mean, it's our right. We are studying in a university, in school, or wherever, and the teacher have to promote the knowledge of the students in equal ways. So it's not like we're asking for a special favor, just we are asking for something that we deserve. That is, that be fair with us also. So that's very important.
Yeah, because basically universities have a duty of care to their students. It's their responsibility to help look after their students, and the students are paying a lot of money to study there as well. So, you know, the universities have a responsibility to ensure that their students are not being penalized and that they are being treated fairly. So people can say that it's down to the person who stammers to sort it out or to ensure that they're doing what they can, but also the university needs to meet them halfway as well.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's super, super important. And we were saying a lot of empathy, a lot of flexibility. It's very important in teachers or in professors, because sometimes it's not that easy for us to say that. Another very interesting thing that I don't remember if I listened to this on a conference or it was on a PDF, but it was the fact of sometimes also the students don't disclose what is going on because they simply don't know what are the options or the options that they could have. So another very nice thing or thing that the professors could do is, I don't know, at the beginning of the course, mention something like, if you need any accommodation or if you need something, you can have it. Just let me know. And, you know, like mention this in advance so the student know that, oh, okay, if I talk with him or with her, with this teacher, they will help me because there is this option. So that was another very interesting thing that teachers can do it in the classroom. Yeah,
definitely. And I think that part of it comes down to many people don't think that stammering is a disability, because if your stammer isn't very obvious, if it isn't very prominent, you wouldn't see it as a disability because it doesn't hold you back, but others do. And it kind of depends on how severe you think your stammer is, but also some people don't want to think of it as a disability because the word disability carries so much stigma, so much shame, embarrassment as well. And that will stop people from going to disability services, from talking to their lecturers, from talking to their personal tutors. And because of that, they're not going to get help in return. So I think it's definitely a societal issue as well, but we need to stop the term disability being associated with a barrier, shame, embarrassment, and all those kind of negative connotations, because once you take that out of it, disability is just another word, really. And then people will be able to ask for help, and they'll be happy to ask for help as well. So you sort of need to get past that barrier of disability being considered a negative thing, really. So
yeah, and that's important because stammering can be a disability if a person has a lot of trouble with that. It's even though you don't see that person stutter that much, be because that's the way he talks. But another important thing that teachers need to know is that this way to talk have some variations. It's not like we stammer in the same way every day. There are some days or some moments when we stutter more or less, and it's not like we are doing this on purpose or that we can control this because then the person is not stuttering there. It's just the variability of this condition is a characteristic, an important characteristics. And even though it could be confusing for the teacher, they also need to understand that. Because this is how we talk. Thank you so much, Claire, for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
On this video's time flies. But yeah, it was really nice to have this conversation. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.